Welcome to everyone who's joining us live. Welcome to everyone who's watching us back on record later. It's great to have you here for the third year of sharing the insights from SmartDesk's annual Charity Technology Leaders Report. Delighted to be joined by James Field and Adam Monks, who are going to take you through the report, and then we will have a bit of a discussion and a bit of a Q&A at the end. So please, if you've got any questions about what you're hearing, if you've got any thoughts about what you're hearing, anything that you want to raise as a topic for conversation or perhaps for future years' surveys, please do put it in the chat and we will try and get to it at the end of the presentation. We have got a few slides to share with you today. James is driving the presentation, so if you wouldn't mind popping the first slide up. And just to let you all know that we are recording this so that it can be shared later with people who've booked but haven't been able to attend live. So if you want to turn your videos off, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to have your faces on recorded as James, Adam and I do. So year 3 of the report, and we will go through all of the trends and the insights and think about what those might mean for charities and the wider sector. But before we do that, there's a couple of slides about Charity IT Leaders, which I'm just going to quickly run through just for the benefit of those who don't know anything about us or about me. So I'm Tree Hall, I'm the CEO of CITL, or Charity IT Leaders, and we are an organisation that supports other charities and not-for-profits to help you get the best out of your investment in data, technology and digital. And we want to help you get the maximum impact that you can from those different areas of your investment. And we want to make sure that you can drive greater efficiencies and deliver more for all of your beneficiaries. We've got about 130 member organisations, making us the largest tech, digital and data membership organisation specifically for charities and not-for-profits. And if you come and join our community, you'll find it's an amazing place to meet with like-minded people, to share knowledge, share experiences and expertise, get answers to questions, to problems, to challenges. It's just a really supportive network of people who get it. The next slide will show you a little bit more about our membership. It's just £720 plus VAT for the year, and it's organisational. So that means that once you've signed up, all of your tech, digital and data colleagues can access all of our content, all of our events, our online communities, all of the networking. We don't charge extra to our members for event attendance, so even annual conference places are included. All you pay for is your accommodation. So for less than £14 a week for all of your tech, data and digital staff, I think that's a pretty good investment to be part of an incredible community. You can access more information about membership at that web address there, or if you go onto the website, there is a membership application form. So please do come and join us if you're not already part of the community. We would love to welcome you. But that's enough about Charity IT Leaders and enough about me. I am delighted that we have partnered with SmartDesk, who are one of our platinum sponsors and who've been a supporter of us as an organisation, but also the wider sector for a number of years now. And delighted to welcome Adam Monks and James Field to the call. They are going to talk you through the things that you are really here to hear about this morning or this afternoon, which is the insights from the third annual Charity Leaders Technology Survey. So I'm going to hand over to James, who's going to tell you a little bit about SmartDesk and introduce the results of the survey. And then please do remember, keep posting your questions and comments in the chat and we'll come back to those at the end. But James, over to you.
Thank you, Tree. Yeah, and if you're not already a member of Charity IT Leaders, definitely join. It's an absolute no-brainer. It's such a vibrant community and it's so useful to share good practice and bad practice between organisations so that we're all learning. So absolutely get involved. The annual conference is excellent fun. Yeah, a little bit about us. So yeah, we're an IT managed service provider. We're fully focused on the sector. So we don't just have a few charities, but 95% of all of our customers are non-profits like yourselves. And we've been going 13 years and provide a range of managed services that are on screen there. Probably our major specialism is helping organisations design or refresh their IT strategy. We do that both as part of our regular service. If you're a general customer of ours, you'll know about this, but we also have a fractional dedicated IT leadership as a service team as well, virtual IT director in the old language, that can come in and provide that helicoptering and support development of your strategy and technology roadmaps. Our core services are in the middle, typical managed services as you might expect. On the support side, we have a lot of expertise in co-managed IT, and it's interesting that's come up in some of the data actually we'll go through later, but you know, hybrid co-managed IT teams alongside in-house is where we do a lot of work with the larger charities predominantly. We have a dedicated cybersecurity team, Cyber Essentials assessors, so if that's coming up for renewal soon, speak to us about that. IT infrastructure and ops, we mostly major on the Microsoft stack, but also all of your networking and firewall requirements and projects. And then we have an information governance team, so that's GDPR specialists, data protection officer as a service, even data protection audits, keeping on top of that never-ending headache of information governance, GDPR compliance. We have a team dedicated to that too. The logo slide, just to give you an idea of some of the organisations we work with in the sector, range from very small to very large international. Probably work with 65 charities day to day for managed services, and well over 100 for one-off projects, cybersecurity assessments, and so on. But really, kind of to Tree's point, we're very lucky to work so broadly across the sector with so many different organisations, and everything that we do is about giving that back in terms of shared learning and expertise, like we're doing today. I'll skip through our expertise slide because it's rather dry, but as I said earlier, we're really focused on the Microsoft stack. We hold those 3 badges there: security, infrastructure, Azure, modern work, which means that we're very well positioned to provide optimizations, consolidations, looking at cost savings, etc. So if any of those logos on there are things that you're thinking about doing or interested in talking about, then do get in touch. So into the survey, as Tree said, now it's its 3rd year of us running this. We surveyed 50 technology leaders at charities that ranged in size from 10 to 50 mil. We had a couple of outsiders as that, but that was the broad range of organisational size. Job titles who responded: heads of ITs, COOs, head of tech, FDs, CFOs, the sort of typical IT budget holders, if you will. And if you're on this call and took part, some of you have taken part and are on, some of you aren't. Thank you very much for all of your time in inputting into the data. And one of those outliers was CITL, but actually very similar trends, Tree, in some of your answers that you came back with actually. And interesting internal IT team size, that last point there. The average was 11, but we had some that were fully outsourced with no internal expertise at all. And at the top end, we had someone with a team of 50 in their IT. So a very broad data set to pick through. And we've summarized the big 5 themes on this slide. Hopefully you can read that okay, but I'll just walk through a little bit of them, and then Adam will dive into them, in each of them, into a little bit more detail. But to touch on infrastructure, I mean, it's interesting now, well over half feel they've now delivered that cloud journey. That's becoming less of a conversation about moving to cloud and more about integration, data and AI nowadays. So I think the infrastructure as we used to know it, of servers and DCs, it's becoming less of a headache, whilst other headaches come into the mix. On the strategy section, really encouraging, we've seen an increase in board level representation of IT, and an increase in IT teams actually seeing or seeking strategic investment in technology as a business enabler, so much more business case driven. There's still work to be done here, definitely, and we'll touch on that later, but we're definitely seeing getting more traction in IT, maybe the profile of IT being raised up a little bit, which is absolutely where it should be. Good old cybersecurity still tops the list of priority projects and focus areas. I think it probably always will be. Although we did see an increase in confidence this year, actually, that organisations feel a bit better positioned than they have before to deal with cyber threats. Although we're still at 18% there on that 3rd row, we're still seeing nearly a 5th still unconfident in this area. So read into that what you will, but there's definitely some neat solutions out there ahead of the rest of the pack, and that is really the art of cybersecurity, is just making yourself less appealing than the next person. On the resourcing front then, so yeah, this is a really interesting one. We have seen quite a big shift over the last year, maybe 18 months, into a pivot to a hybrid structure that blend in-house with outsource. Like I said at the beginning of some of our service catalog bits, we've definitely seen a trend in that in the data as well, and actually a corresponding reduction in organisations that run IT fully in-house. And then lastly, AI wouldn't be a webinar without talking about AI. It's definitely growing in terms of being something that I think last year the data told us that it was people were thinking about it. To this year, we're actively using it or piloting it. I think last year it was barely 10-20% that were in that bracket, and that's now risen up to 42% that are either piloting, or I think another 10% that are now implementing it in the wild. So those are the very top level 5 big themes. The last one from me is the challenges, though this is a bit like top of the box, where we had some movers and shakers in our list from last year, and I'm sure some of these will resonate, but the day-to-day things that get in the way. Number one still being reactive issues taking away focus from business enablement and projects. That hasn't changed. Budget at number 2, especially to get the right level and expertise of resources, was second in the list. Number 3, managing outsourced partners moved up the list. That's probably related to the trend of outsourcing or hybrid teams more generally. Number 4, IT not having the profile it needs to improve the business or to underpin the business. As I say, some increase in this area, but not enough, I would hesitate to argue. And then numbers 5 and 6 really focused on talent recruitment and retention. Talent management in general, I think, is a common theme that we saw in the data this year as well. So I'll hand over to Adam just to deep dive into a few of those. Adam, let me know when you want to click the slides on.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'll have to say next slide, please, James, unfortunately. So yeah, well, thanks very much anyway. You've given a good overview there, and I think what I'll do is just dive into the results a little bit deeper, kind of question by question. So it might be a bit of a stat attack, but let's see if we can identify any trends as we go through, and hopefully it sparks some thoughts and some questions for discussion in the comments, which would be super. I can see there's some coming in, which is fabulous. So this first slide's around strategic priorities. So what is of strategic importance to IT leaders this year? And when we're looking at this, it's good to remember that we're talking about the year ahead from kind of April 1st. And so that next 12 months, and obviously we do this every year to see, what are people now concentrating on in that near term. So looking at the graphic here, we've got operational improvements, better reporting, and business enablement being the top 3 priorities. And then following that, we've got obtaining strategic investment and enabling both supporter and service user strategies coming in after that, with cost reductions and increasing pace at the lower end of the answers here. Although, as you can see, it's relatively evenly-ish split, apart from those differences I've pointed out. But I think everyone probably agrees these are all important areas, but it'd be interesting to see what you think about operational improvements, reporting, and business enablement being at the top, just edging the top of those strategic priorities for this year. We move on to the next slide. We've got focus areas. So beyond strategy, what are the areas of focus for delivery and improvement and BAU improvement on the ground? As James mentioned, cybersecurity is still topping the list of priority focused areas, as it was last year. Not really a surprise. You've only got to turn on any news source at the moment to be seeing many horror stories. So I think that keeps us all front front and center of our minds to be thinking and banging the drum for further investment and focus on cybersecurity. Transforming or digitizing business processes is in second. And we just saw that this also came through as a strategic priority area in the last slide we looked at. And I think that's quite encouraging, actually, because that, for me, shows a little bit of a shift from server troubleshooting and spending our time in the infrastructure to starting to maybe look a bit more at the business enablement side. So I think that seeing that in second place was really interesting for me and really encouraging. Operational improvements are kind of in third and fourth, with supporting charity projects closely following that. AI is coming in lower down the list here, interestingly, but on the next slide, we'll see that most organizations are actually considering, if not already, at pilot stage. So we'll certainly look at AI in a bit more detail. And then hybrid work is kind of at that rock bottom place. I feel like we're probably far enough away now from lockdown that most people have got that nailed. So it's less of a priority for people, because I think it should largely be in place and working well for organizations. And it's kind of, yeah, it's not great to see environmental impact of IT down low like that either. But I think that that's probably a case of resources and the need to focus on those operational improvements and that business enablement piece, as I said. So I'll be interested to see over the years to come whether, when those things are in better shape, whether that, and I would hope it does, comes further up the chart. In terms of technical solutions that people are prioritizing this year, as James said at the top, 60% have delivered cloud. But it also shows us that of the 40% of people who haven't delivered cloud, there's actually only 3% of that of people who are not taking it forward in some form. So 60% are delivered. Everybody else, apart from 3%, is piloting or scoping or considering that. And then asset management, device management, and DLP are the next biggest scorers. Then it's AI, then system integrations and ITSM, and blockchain is in the lowest score. As you can see there, there's very few people still thinking about that. So just focusing in on AI for a moment. So a third of organizations have got to pilot stage with AI. So this has trended up from last year. As we saw on the last slide, only 18% are not considering AI. So on that last slide, where it was divided between who is doing what, a bit like I was saying with cloud, there's only that 18% that are not considering doing something with it in this 12-month period. So whilst there's 32% piloting in some form, others are looking to move to that stage. The majority of people are looking to move to that stage this year. And it'll be interesting to hear questions from the floor, if I may prompt on how folks are approaching the AI opportunity, particularly around sort of LLMs, which has been the big story of the last couple of years. Are you at test and learn stage, maybe, or are you waiting to see what other organizations are going to do and waiting for some really tangible case studies to be out there? Are you possibly waiting for the technology to evolve a little bit? Be really keen to hear views on that from the floor. And I think it'll be an interesting next 12 months for AI as we start to see those case studies coming through from those pilots, And indeed, our summer social, which is you're all invited to, which is on our website. We have WWF's IT director coming to just give an opening talk about how their Copilot pilot has gone for them. So they've gone with 150 Microsoft 365 Copilot licenses, rolled that out, and they're coming to share their learnings on how that's gone. So do come, and thanks Tree for the link. Do register for that. Come along, see each other in person, and hear from WWF on that. And I'll also just be interested to see how many organizations move beyond, the native features of AI in Copilot that are working well, things like meeting minutes and helping me produce a different way to word a sentence. It's very, very strong at that sort of thing. But we know that the vision is for us to be using AI agents, for us to be using those in SharePoint. We've got access to those of us that have those 365 licenses, those Copilot 365 licenses. And those are the bits that will really help to automate business processes. So I'll be really intrigued to see who is moving that piece forward beyond that kind of native capability that's clearly working well already. Great. So I'll move us on from AI, and the next section was around IT service management, and great to see a doubling of numbers here. So organizations who are focusing on IT service management has indeed doubled. I suspect that is linked a little bit to the evolution of the IT team, same theme I was talking about earlier with moving more into business enablement. So us spending less time needing to troubleshoot servers and so forth. So allowing us to shift to look at customer service and business process, and that kind of evolution of the IT team. So really good to see customer service and service management doubling in focus for us. Next slide is around the structure of IT departments, and some interesting movement here from last year, a definite swing. There's a swing away from having 100% in-house setup. So last year there was 50% of respondents had purely in-house IT department functions, and this year that's moved quite significantly to only 25% of respondents have in-house IT only functions. So the rest being that 75% odd being made up from either hybrid or pure outsource. So again, interested to see if that is shifting. Certainly, slightly more anecdotally, we're seeing more and more charities come to us to just discuss what the art of the possible is around that for the first time. So where they've always historically had pure in-house teams, starting a conversation with us, and I'm sure with other MSPs, about how that could look. What are the ballparks, and how can that be done? And I think being done in a compartmentalized way as well. I don't think well, it depends on the size of the organization a little bit. So smaller organizations might 100% outsource the IT function. Medium to large organizations are looking more at what particular function can we shift to outsource and get rid of that headache, so that our internal people are retained and basically developed and given those opportunities that the organization and those individuals want, which is to do more business enablement work, more work on the front line, moving from that back office team to frontline enablement work. And finally, profile. Now this is talking about the profile of the IT team within our non-profits. And again, more of a swing in the right direction this year, which is good news, but still a little bit more to do here, as we can see. We've certainly seeing here an increase in IT representation by about 15% in the right direction. So more than half of organisations now saying they have some form of representation on exec or on board. And yeah, as I say, there's still more to do here. It does. Tree and I were talking about this the other day, and I was saying, in my view, I think it can come down a lot to the CEO who's in place at that particular organisation and how they view technology as to whether it's a back office function or whether it's a real strategic enabler, as to whether there is a seat there on exec or on board. So again, really interested to hear your views, whether you're seeing a shift there yourselves, whether you're pushing to make that change yourselves, or working with some inspiring CEOs and COOs that have that vision. So that's really the run through of the results, and thanks for listening. And yeah, hopefully there's a little bit there to kick off a bit of Q&A. I had a note here to say hopefully 1 or 2 questions have come in, but I can see that lots have come in, so that's really great. So I'll hand over to Trees, kind of chair this next half of the webinar, where we move into a bit more of a discussion in Q&A. Thanks, Tree.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks, James. Really interesting presentation again. And for me, one of the really interesting elements of this is seeing how the trends are changing or becoming more extreme, or just what the patterns are over the 3 years that you've been doing this survey. And I think the more data we build up on this over the next few years, the more depth of insight and the more interesting those kind of insights and revelations become. So it's fascinating to watch this year on year. We've had some great questions coming in the chat, and also just some great comments and so on, which we'll start working through. I'm going to go straight to those questions and hold mine until a little bit later on, because I really want to give the people who are on the call an opportunity to have their questions answered and their voices heard. So first question from Chris Harrington, question for SmartDesk. In a fully outsourced example, do you own the laptops that are provided? As in, when a laptop is returned to, say, an HR person, does that laptop then need to be returned to SmartDesk for cleaning and reset, or are the laptops bought by the organisation and therefore laptops returned to HR should be kept and held by an officer in the organisation? Who wants to go on this one?
Yeah, maybe you want to go, James, but I think in at a high level, in terms of SmartDesk, we can do it any way which round is right for your organisation, but we have all flavours of those kind of options. And yeah, put you on the spot, James, but maybe you want to talk about the difference between kind of that being run in-house or using kind of our asset lifecycle service. And there's also opportunities for leasing or buying outright, aren't there?
Spoilers. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that the most common model is the organisation owns the assets, the hardware. That's the most common one. We do, as Adam said, we have a leasing facility so that they can be leased and refreshed on a 3 or 4 year cycle, and the residual value of those devices then come back as a rebate and offset the cost of the lease agreement in total. So there's in advance rebate given on the costs, and then they're taken back every 3 or 4 years. It's up to you. So you can do it without having those assets on your balance sheet on a pure lease order, which with that rebate now actually can often be slightly less cost than buying them outright. In the olden days, you used to get charged by, I don't know, BNP Paribas and HSBC for the privilege of taking a loan out to fund that hardware. But nowadays, with the value of the stuff resale after 3 or 4 years, it actually can be slightly less expensive, and you don't have it on your P&L, which some people don't want. Or you can buy them up front and own them. But yeah, as Adam said, we have a lifecycle facility where we can then do that churn. So one of the big charities we were talking to the other day literally employs 2 people whose whole job it is just to take in laptops from levers and joiners, rebuild them, put them on the shelf in the office and then send them out again. And that's 2 people doing that. I'd argue not the best, most exciting work in terms of talent retention and stuff. So they can take that facility on and just run that from Reading. So yeah, lots of different options there.
Thank you for that. Chris has given some context to his question, which has actually made me feel slightly ill. He says he recently started and received a laptop that was dirty / stained and also still had the previous user's account on it, which he was rather shocked by. Legitimately shocked, I think. That's horrible, because laptops are hives of bacteria at the best of times. To think that you've got somebody else's stained and dirty one. Ugh. So good to know that there's options for managing that in whichever way an organisation wants to. So thank you for the detail on that.
Yeah, first impressions count, right? As well, that's it. I mean, the life cycle facility we have, do a full clean, disinfect, wipe down, check it works. Remove the old accounts, actually wipe it using Blanco, and then rebuild it using your Intune autopilot, and then they put it on the shelf. So that's it shouldn't be that way, Chris. That's not a nice first experience when you first joined.
No, absolutely not. I hope that you've got a clean laptop now, Chris, because that's horrid.
He cleaned it himself, I bet.
Yeah, probably. I would definitely be cleaning that myself. Great question from George Martin here. To what extent, and I have to say, I loved it when this came in, because this is going to keep the 2 of you busy for a while answering this one. To what extent are the challenges around reactive issues related to the build-up of IT technical debt? Great question.
Yeah, directly linked, aren't they? I mean, without the bandwidth and expertise to mobilize and deliver improvements, tension just builds, doesn't it? So you get tension from leadership teams that we're not really moving forward with our IT, and you get tension in the IT team because they want to do these more exciting projects, but they're slightly hamstrung by having to down tools every hour and go and help someone. And underpinning all of that is the technical debt building up, because you aren't moving forward. And yeah, we see tons of organizations coming to us that are licensed for E3, E5 business premium, and they're using like 10% of the license features, and they're also spending money on third-party products that do the same thing, and they know it and they don't like it, but they've never had the time to actually rationalize those systems out, use the Microsoft tools they're licensed for, just configure them properly. That might be a skill set thing as well. But yeah, all of that in my head, that leads to technical debt building up. I don't know if Adam, you'd add anything onto that.
No, I think that's right. I think what we find going into some organizations not worked with before, the infrastructure's grown kind of a little bit organically over the years. So there's been a need for something specific, and that's been sort of bolted on to it, and that has meant in some cases that the infrastructure in those cases, often kind of on premise, has become quite complicated and kind of overly complex, and that then being overly complex and expensive to support. Well, if it's being supported in-house, it might not be more expensive, but there'll be a kind of a TCO cost that's meaning that those members of the IT team are having to spend all their time on the upkeep of that infrastructure and not being able to look kind of out into the business. If it's kind of outsourced support of that infrastructure, then it would be actual pound notes of cost there, because most organizations or MSPs are going to probably charge per server per month for the proactive patching and monitoring of those servers, and also then again possibly some additional cost for supporting those and so forth. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, now there's simpler solutions in the cloud and infrastructure as a service and software as a service than doing a target model of what that infrastructure could look like in a more simplified manner that's simple to run and support. You would hope reduces costs and frees up people's time.
That's really interesting. Do you think this is related to another point that was raised in the survey about the leadership, or the technical and digital representation at leadership level? So whether it's board or executive team, if you don't have that representation at that level, you don't have that understanding, that knowledge at that level, Is it harder for tech and digital teams to get the investment to be maintaining infrastructure, to be constantly investing in the business as usual, which won't be business as usual if you don't invest in it? I mean, certainly that's the feedback that we get from our members, and I wondered if that chimes with your experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, because I think you need to have the vision of what can be achieved if things are simplified and are creating less time and focus for teams on the ground. So, what can be done if technology people have time and energy to focus on those business enablement pieces, whether it's doing something for a charitable project, being involved in how does technology solve this thing over here? Is it technology reaching more supporters? Is it technology making operational processes around the charity and any team more efficient and effective? And that is, yeah, there needs to be leadership that has the vision that that is something that will achieve gain for the organization. So there needs to be a kind of a confidence in, I suppose, technology's ability to be able to deliver that. And yeah, I think that absolutely needs to be there at the top. Otherwise, it's, then the investment in technology and moving that dial isn't really going to be championed.
And it's difficult, I think, for organisations at the moment because many of them are having to freeze their budgets or make savings, downsize their staffing. And what tends to happen in those scenarios is that you get salami slicing of budgets. So people are told you've just got to make 10% savings, or it's 500,000 per department or whatever. But there's no real strategic consideration of those cuts and savings. And the fact that if you cut the money that tech teams have got to invest in systems, platforms, and solutions that you've already got, you won't be able to maintain them. You won't be able to upgrade them. You won't be able to maintain people's training, and you're just not going to get the return on them. And that's when that technical debt builds up.
Mm.
And it's so deeply frustrating because it's such a short-sighted approach. And I recognise it's not a simple solution or answer, but I just wish that as a whole across the sector, that there was a greater understanding of the need to continue to invest in your core technology infrastructure, because if you don't, it will stop working and you just won't get the best from it. But it makes it very difficult, as you said, Adam, for tech teams then to have the capacity and the time to be able to do the more, I guess, the sexy stuff, the innovative stuff. If you don't have the business as usual working efficiently and effectively, you don't have the capacity for the rest of it. So it's just a kind of negative cycle then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's opportunity cost, isn't it? I mean, I couldn't agree more with your statement about every team in the organization needs to cut 10%, or how it's often, unfortunately, kind of looked at. Whereas if the cost overall of the organization should be looked at, how can we save overall cost? And to save cost, you can use technology. I mean, that's what most corporate enterprises are doing, is looking to technology to be the thing that reduces cost for them, not cutting the technology back in the hope that cost is being reduced. That's not a normal thing to be. Well, it's certainly not what the successful companies are doing. And actually, I saw a talk at a MSP conference from a gentleman that wasn't actually with a technology background. He was a business guy. He advises governments on policies, worked with national newspapers on their strategies, and that was exactly what he said. He said we think you're in a good space being MSPs, because in economically difficult times, most corporate organizations are looking to technology solutions to save them money and make them more efficient. And that's his view, not being a technology person, that's his view, and how he's advising, governments and big business about how to think about technology. So that for me feels normal, and it doesn't feel normal for just do the blanket, every single team in the organization cut 10% out, because it's just not, it doesn't feel strategic.
No, and that's a great point about strategy. So I will come back to the other questions in the chat, but a point that Chris has made down here, which I think ties into this and the strategic thinking. So thinking from a strategic perspective, how would SmartDesk integrate within the business to offer strategic recommendations and advice? And I think you'll obviously have a view of this for SmartDesk, but the approach that you have is going to be applicable to even teams working internally to offer strategic recommendations and advice. So really keen to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, I'll talk from our perspective first, and maybe that will go somewhere. But we started as a IT strategy consultancy organization when there was just me and my co-founder. We were doing IT director as a service because we had previous experience in strategy and mobilizing and implementing strategies. And then through the years, we built the business up and became a large MSP. We've now got 100 technical people working for us and delivering work. But because we had that strategy at the heart of what we're doing and grew everything from that, we've then been able to create strategic frameworks for how to run IT, whether it's infrastructure or operating models. And then through our customer success management, that framework is used for every single one of our accounts. So we'll look at doing things like IT health scorecards to look at, the 60 areas that need to be in a good state within an IT department. So we'll score all of those, and then anything that needs remediation goes onto a program of work that's then tracked through a program, and we look at that together on a quarterly basis. And the only other piece to that is a target model as well, whether that's operating model or infrastructure, having that target vision, that target state, and then so we can show strategically where we're going, why we're going there, and everybody at kind of board level can see, okay, understand why we're going there, made the justification for why we need to go there, like some of the things we've been talking about already, about simplification, cost saving, moving from back office to frontline, and so forth. And here's the model that will make that happen, and then a program roadmap to show the projects and investments that will take the organisation there, and obviously working with finance to map out the budget for that across multiple years potentially. So that kind of strategic approach is, as I say, what we've always done, and then that has allowed us to bake that into all of our kind of account management and MSPs and so forth. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question on the broader sense of how to kind of achieve that as more of an in-house team, but I'd certainly recommend those same sorts of techniques and assets to be in place.
I think I'll add to that, Adam, if I may, as well. One example from a recent roundtable, I think it was Salvation Army, that I really liked. They're obviously huge, and they have they call it service reviews with departments. So the IT team, like we run service reviews with our customers, they run service reviews as an IT team with department heads, and that is literally how is my IT team performing, internal IT team performing for you as a business. And then they have, as part of that, it's kind of like a QBR, actually, a quarterly business review like you have with an outsourced supplier. They literally run it like that. So then they'll go into business enablement projects, areas of technology that the organisation is looking at that IT might not be aware of, even just day-to-day challenges like laptops arriving dirty. They'll bring up those in a sort of seeing the end users, as we used to call them, as customers, and actually run it like that as a business unit, and that works really well from them. And there's always going to be the art of you don't know what you don't know, so those heads of departments aren't going to be tech evangelists, but they certainly will have their little list of issues that they want to overcome, and that regular engagement through quarterly business reviews I thought was a really nice idea to run as an internal piece, like a technology steering group similar.
There's that business partnering approach, isn't it? It's being a bridge between technology and the rest of the organisation. And I think from what you've described, Adam, and from what you've just said, James, that feels very much like SmartDesk's approach as well, is that you are a business partner to your customers. So yes, you are a separate organisation, but you're very much when you're working with an organisation, you are very much a part of that organisation as well as a business partner, so it's not separate entities. And then it makes that benchmarking piece that you do using the frameworks that you have, I think it gives it credibility. And for organisations that are looking at how they can make these strategic recommendations internally that perhaps aren't working with an external partner, I think that benchmarking piece is incredibly important, because if you are trying to make a case for investment in some way, or for change of the way the organisation's processes work, or how you utilise certain pieces of technology, if you can demonstrate what other organisations are doing and show where you need to either catch up or where you're particularly strong, if you can show the risks of not doing such, not carrying out those actions, not investing in that way, using that external data can be a really good way to validate and strengthen the argument that you're putting forward. So from a strategic perspective, having data like we've talked about today, looking at other surveys, looking at other reports and benchmarking that's out there, talking to your peers across different organisations is a fantastic way to really add credibility to what you're asking senior management teams to invest in. So thank you for that. Just going to go back up because there were some really interesting comments about outsourcing, which I wanted to pick up on as well. So I asked in the chat for people who've outsourced or are considering it, what have been the drivers for that. And we had some great comments: access to a broader range of skills compared to a small in-house team. The thing that really sells full outsourcing is how or if the MSP works to understand the business and provide the proactive and strategic approach that an internal IT team can provide. Cost, and the fact that outsourcing is right-sized for us, also simply access to a wide range of resources. I wondered if you wanted to come in and comment on that, and then talk about how that's reflective of your experiences with the organisations that you're working with. You've both gone shy now. Nobody wants to jump in.
Sorry. Do you know what? I'm trying to maneuver. I'm just working on a laptop screen, so I was trying to maneuver too much stuff at once to get a couple of notes in front of me, because funnily enough, James and I were talking about putting together kind of a bit of a list of benefits, some of which you've obviously listed there, but a few others we were talking about internally recently. I mean, we've got some case studies on the website as well. The WaterAid one's really worth a watch, and that's kind of about how you can really make quite significant transformation actually in the IT team and the IT function by, like I touched on earlier, kind of moving out some of the day-to-day maintenance and then allowing your internal colleagues to move kind of upwards in the organization and start to work with the organization, working on those charitable projects, and working on support projects, and so on. And that's certainly what WaterAid have done with the partnership with us. There's things like having one partner to manage. I think there are other MSPs available, but if the key thing I think from an MSP is making sure that there's an organisation that's going to be accountable for overall success, not just what their little bit that they say in their contract that they will do, and then you ring up and then it's a conversation, oh, that's not us, and then you end up having multiple suppliers to manage, and it becomes very, very, very difficult. So having one kind of trusted partner is useful. They can then also manage your other IT suppliers potentially as well for you, because they should be well experienced in doing that. A long-term kind of continuity is also something that you receive, so you shouldn't get a gap in service with things like people turnover and so forth. And the other one, I'll just leave you with this one. I'm not banging on about this too much, it sounds a bit salesy, but I think one thing that's we didn't quite kind of think about years ago, but we get a lot of good feedback on, is that the technical staff in-house actually get technical, certified technical people to work with, to mentor them and to manage them in certain structures where we might be managing some of the in-house teams, so these different structures are available. But often in organisations of kind of a medium or smaller size, then the IT staff can feel quite isolated. They're reporting into non-IT people, and that can be quite challenging for folks to have that kind of mentoring, a technical mentor, as it were. So learning from more experienced technical people, having those people around them, and if you can have the model in place where everybody's seamlessly working as one team and is really properly supporting each other, then that can work really, really well for those colleagues and help them on their journeys. I've got more, but I won't go on.
No, you don't need to. You don't need to, because George has done the sales pitch in the chat for you by very helpfully sharing the criteria that they've used to assess MSPs, and then says, and SmartDesk came out top. So I don't think you need to say anything else on that. George has done you proud there. There was another interesting comment. Sorry, just scrolling back through, because we've had some really great comments and questions in the chat. There was one about data protection. Is data protection included in the section about ensuring cybersecurity? And that was a question from George. If not, slightly surprised data protection doesn't feature more heavily in survey results.
Yeah, yes. Oh, sorry, Tree.
It's all right. Go on.
We do think about data protection slightly separately, actually, for better or for worse. So we had it wasn't a huge section on it in the survey, but there was a kind of a separate question around data protection. So if you make sure you've got a copy of the full report of the survey results, and there's a section in there specifically around data protection. And you can, if you haven't got that, then do come to our website and fill in the very brief form, and we'll send you the full debrief out. And I think it's on page 12 there, the section of about data protection and governance. And the main thing being drawn out on there actually was, we were asking a bit of a question on, and we have done each year, on who's considering using a partner to help with that. And actually that's moving more in the direction of people considering partners and support on data protection. So we actually have a data protection specific team who can help with kind of DPO as a service, or implementing data protection processes and so forth, or just being part of data protection teams, just to help with the volume of subject access requests and incident reporting and all that fun stuff. But yeah, our folks are very much data protection people as their background through and through, which is a bit of a different discipline to IT as far as we're concerned, and information security. But yeah, if there's any more specific question about that, then please do type away.
Thank you. We've got just over 5 minutes left, and I think we've managed to pick up on most of the points in the chat. So I just want to do a couple of quick fire questions to you both, just to sort of round things off, if I may. Adam, if I can come to you first, what was the most surprising thing that was highlighted in this year's report? And these are slightly curveball questions, so sorry for putting you on the spot.
No, that's all right. I think actually it was a nice surprise, which is that it came through strongly in a couple of sections that it's a high priority for digitization of business processes. That was really, really cool to see, because that's something, yeah, I'm quite passionate about and encourage kind of organizations to be doing and thinking about, but it's often really quite difficult, I've found, for organizations to move forward. Because there's a bit of a cross team that needs to be built there to achieve that. You need business analysis people, or some slightly larger charities might have BAs in their IT team, but a lot don't. And there might be one then just centrally in the charity, and you've got to get some time from them. But I think more and more that BA skill is something that we need to either have in our functions or have access to be able to then move forward with automation and AI. Really, to get really good results from automation and AI, you need to be thinking about what's the business process. I need to map it. I need to map what it is today, and then I need to map the future state of that process, and apply those technologies to it. And yeah, really encouraging to see that's a focus for people, and I'll be really keen to hear how people are solving that when at the next sort of networking opportunity.
And fantastic shout out to the BAs there. I don't think BAs get enough credit for the work that they do and the value that they can bring to their organisations. We've got an amazing BA special interest group within CITL, and the stuff that comes out of there, the sharing, the expertise is just phenomenal. So if you as an organisation are fortunate enough to have BAs, do go and use them, because they add so much value to projects. They really are an amazing resource to have. So yeah, thank you for that. James, what have you seen from the report that concerns you as being the biggest barrier for charities in terms of progressing what they're doing with technology and the impact that they can have from their investment in technology?
Good question. Yeah, probably the representation at board level question. Still, we've made progress. It was less than half. It's now just over half, so it is getting there. But I think back to Adam's earlier points about having the vision at leadership level, board level, and that understanding of spending money to save money. You know, if cost cutting is essential, then it might need some investment first to make those savings in future. It's going to be very difficult to make that case without that representation at board level that can really drive that agenda. So there's still, I think, 35 or 40% that don't have any board representation of IT. So yeah, that's gone down from 40 to 60 or something like that. But we've still got a big gap, right? That's still a big chunk. So that's the bit that I feel like it is definitely the conversation's going in the right direction. But yeah, I would say that's the area to focus on.
That resonates really strongly, and it's something that we've talked about before, and we're really passionate about changing that story at CITL, because it's not just the board level representation, it's also having tech and digital voices represented at exec level and being able to be in the room for that strategic decision making and the business decision making. And that means that the skills that senior technologists and digital experts have to have are not just technical skills, they've got to have those broader business skills as well to be able to articulate powerfully and compellingly in that broader strategic conversation. So yeah, completely agree with that. We've got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to come to both of you for this, one after the other. If there is one thing that charities do as a result of this report and the insights that we've shared and talked about today, what would you want that one thing to be? And James, if you could answer that first, and then we'll let Adam close that one off.
That's a great question, and we haven't even rehearsed these, Tree, so that's great. I think I like thinking on my feet, and I think actually, yeah, it's probably the benchmarking piece is quite clear. I mean, cybersecurity is the key focus area, and it always will be. But that optimizing the organisation's operations, improving operational efficiency, they are things that your peers are heavily focusing on in this sector. And where we work with charities that do that and invest that time and get those processes as automated as they can, and even simple things like using Autopilot and Intune and just getting the basics right, they really then free up space for their IT teams, who broadly know what other business enablement projects they want to get stuck into. They just never get a chance to do it. They then thrive. So I think that is what I'd say is the takeaway for me is use those top 3 or 4 focus areas to go and knock on the door and say, look, this is what the sector's focusing on, and if we're not, then we should be doing it too.
Great response. Thank you for that. And Adam, as SmartDesk's leader and senior person on the call, we will give you the opportunity to close this one with what would you want charities to take away from this? If you could give them one piece of advice about what they should be doing, What is it
Well,
as
I
a result of
think
the survey?
building on James's answer, I think once you've organized so that those day-to-day bits have a home and they don't need to be your focus anymore, like the infrastructure, like the service desk and so forth, then it's all about that enablement piece. It's about operations and charitable projects and utilizing modern and emerging technologies to solve business problems, AI and automation. And we're so lucky in this sector that we can collaborate and share how we're doing and how we're approaching things. You can't do that in corporate sectors. They will not talk to each other for obvious reasons. And something like AI, LLMs, and Copilot, and how we're going to do that, what the people doing. Please do just collaborate, share learnings. Go to forums where you can get together and just find out. It's not much time out of people's days to get once a quarter, go to something or an evening at something, and just find out what people are doing, how they're getting on, and who's helping them do it successfully, where are the case studies and so forth, because it's a really exciting time with these technologies coming in, and it'll be a fascinating 12 to 24 months.
Absolutely. So benchmarking, basics and networking, it feels like, are the things that people really need to be working on. Thank you both so much. And also, can I just thank Zoe, who's been working tirelessly behind the scenes at Smart Desk to make this all happen. She won't thank me for calling her on screen, but she has been absolutely phenomenal in making all of this happen and getting the report out there. So thank you to Zoe. Thank you everyone who's joined us live today. Thank you to everyone who watches us back a little bit later when you've got a cup of tea and 45 to 50 minutes to spare. We will be back next year, I hope. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And we would love to have even more organisations taking part in the survey next year. If you have found this session helpful, please do share it with colleagues, share the follow-up comms with colleagues so that more people can see it and benefit from it. And if there's anything that we've talked about today that you want to follow up on, or that you would like to get James or Adam to speak with you about, reach out in the chat. I know they would love to follow up and have conversations with you all. And of course, if we at CITL can help anybody with anything, please do reach out to us as well. It has been another great conversation. I genuinely look forward to these each year because we cover such a range of topics, and it's great to get different perspectives, but to have this kind of central report and the survey results to give us a focus to talk about. So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for all the comments and questions and input in the chat. And we'll see you back here next year. But thank you to Adam and James for joining us as well. Been a great session.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Tree, and thanks everyone for joining.